Hello, hello. Hey, everybody. Whew. Welcome to the Layer 5 community meeting. Was it June 18th, Friday? We always have the community meeting on Friday. I think it's, well, probably towards the end of the week is about the time that the jokes get even faster and more loose, which is kind of what I'm hoping will happen on as I catch up with Nitish later, get a little loose. Yeah. Anyway, Nitish, I didn't mean to message you and then not follow up. So I'm looking forward to catching up.
Yeah, it's fine. I understand that the time zone's different, right? So I totally get it.
Good. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, if you can't tell, I can't remember if I said good morning just now, but I recognize that that's inappropriate for a lot of us. So speaking of which, there's a lot of us on the call today. Great. There's been quite the trend of a lot of us being on the call. We occasionally have the newcomer come through, which is always exciting to me. It's always nice to meet and get to know some new folks. And so in our long-standing tradition, as a way of breaking the ice, if you're new on the call today, guess what? You get to say hi and just introduce yourself. Say, what's your favorite color? More importantly, what are you interested in? Why are you here? Where are you calling in from? Those kinds of things. What did you have for breakfast this morning? The important stuff. So if you're on the call for the first time, like potentially Michael, Mr. Darko, or Mr. Rai, actually, Siddharth, have you been on the call before?
Yeah, I joined the earlier meeting.
Makes sense. Okay. Well, I don't know. It's debatable whether or not you get a pass today. We'll have to.
All right. I'm Michael Darko. I'm calling from Ghana. Well, I'm a newcomer though. I started with Python, got into web development not long ago, but I'm quite fluent in JavaScript now, and I've used Node and Express and Mongo for I think 2 apps currently, and I wanted to get a community where I could get involved in open source contribution. So I saw the Layer5 and I was like, okay, let me get involved. Well, I also noticed that there are a lot of React components and React stuff that you do there, and I'm learning React as well. So I know probably in good time, I'll be contributing more. Thank you.
Michael, that's fantastic. That's awesome. Yeah, be careful as you talk about working on the front end things. The community has a way of jumping on people who are talented in that way, just because there's so many needs there. So that's great. Yeah, there's a lot of React floating around, a bit more than had been in the past. This site, there's a few sites, different project sites, and that the community works on. But this particular site tries to represent all of them or all the projects, and was openly developed by, well, I think the count is like up to 160, 170 people now, which is awesome. Anyway, point is, it's based on Gatsby. So there's some React floating around on this site itself, but then also Meshery, the largest project that we have here, its UI is in React as well. Different frameworks used between the two. So it's Next.js here and Material UI. But so much work is needed. Actually, last time that we met, Utkarsh, one of the maintainers, was starting to show that a new management UI is being formed. So anyway, excellent time to join the community. Nice to have you.
All right, thank you. Which means I've got a lot to learn as well, because I've just started on the React process. I actually like to work with back end, but I noticed as a junior developer, you would always have to go through front end before you get to back end. So that's a part of taking. So I think I got you there. I wouldn't be having a lot to do when I actually learn more. I think I might get to the back end people, unless there would be a stumbling block, which would always be pushing me to the front end. Other than that, I think your joke couldn't work out on me.
Nice. Yeah, no, nice. Yeah. Sounds like everyone has to pay their dues as they go from front end to back end, maybe is. And actually, that was a bad joke. I actually, you know what's, you know, I have to make a stand on this topic for just a moment and say, I've been in a number of environments where people, people frown on front end things on like a language like JavaScript. And it always brings a smile to my face because it's those same people who work very hard on underlying functional capabilities on the back end. And it makes me smile because unless those back end capabilities are well represented in a clear and compelling and hopefully sort of sexy way in the UI, like it doesn't matter how great the functionality is, and nobody's going to use it because, or not that many people will use it because it doesn't, because you can't see it, you can't look at it. So it's not to be overlooked. Like UI is just as important. Heck, well, I've worked in corporations where we've acquired companies just because the UI tricked them and made it look like they were powerful capabilities, and they really weren't. It was just a bunch of Python sort of glued together. Great, nice to have you, Michael. Other newcomers on the call today. We've got I think a couple. Who else is?
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. I am Harshit Yadav. I am a third-year student at Triple IT Gwalior, pursuing Bachelor of Technology in Information Technology. And I am from India. And I am a full-stack developer. Specifically speaking, I am a MERN stack developer. And yeah, I am a newcomer, and I am hoping to have great learning over here. Nice to meet you guys.
Very nice to meet you, Harshit. Yeah. Thanks for coming. Nice to have you. Who else hasn't gotten a chance to say hi?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Divyansu, a third-year undergrad from India. Because when I tell my university name, there's not a lot of people will get to know about that. So I'm just going to tell you about my stacks. Like, I am pretty good with Python. Currently, I'm learning Go. That's why I'm here, because I get to know that we are in layer 5. We are working on Go, like extensively on Go. So I thought while I'm learning Go, I can contribute to this community and learn a lot from them. So that's my main motive, and I am good with front end as well. So that's it. Or one more thing, I'm like, my interest lies in DevOps and machine learning. That's it.
Nice. Good. Good. Yeah. Yep. Well, somehow I'm unsurprised that you said machine learning. Just because I think every college student in India is chasing after machine learning. Like, it's just like it's like a mandatory course.
No,
Cool.
no. Like I got interested because of recommendation system at YouTube. I was just surfing YouTube, and then I got to know about machine learning. At that time, I was learning aerospace engineering. So I was not introduced to computer science. Like, I was just floating around all the field of engineering. So I got to know about recommendation system. Then I searched about how can I build this thing. So I got to know about machine learning. And after that, I'm just continuing that thing.
Yeah, and over to the dark side in computer science. Good. Welcome. Nice. Parth. Parth, have you gotten this chance to say hi before? Yep. And so, hey, Parth Loania, I think that's how you. Hello. If you are audio challenged, feel free to say hi in chat. All right. Who else do we have? Anam. Yeah. Hello. Do you want to say hi?
Yes, hi. Myself, I'm Anam Samanohar, and I'm a second year student undergraduate from India. And I'm a front-end developer. I saw this community regarding this from LFX mentorship program. So I just joined this community. So yeah, I'm looking forward to learn a lot of things from this particular community.
Dude, nice. Yeah, perfect. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, thanks for the webcam too. Like, it's amazing. It's like out of the 25 people that are here, you're one of 3 or 4 that's brave enough to actually come on. You're doing better than most already. So there's a few folks on the call who know they're going to get harassed after the call if they don't turn on their webcam. So they're going to be in trouble. Cool. All right. Very good. Well, moving right along. And if anyone didn't get a chance to say hi, please do in the chat, and we'll cruise on into the announcements here. So is Anita on the call? Meshmate Anita? Not yet. Okay, fine. No problem. So welcome, newcomers. Very nice to have you. Navendu, we have a couple of other announcements. Pranav and Rudraksh. Navendu, do you want to speak to this first one? And Pranav, Rudraksh, do you guys want to speak to the next one?
Surely. So we are kicking off a new meeting on Mondays. This will be related to WASM filters, WebAssembly filters. So Meshery as a service mesh manager is going to support filters. That is, the users can deploy filters, store their filters, their WASM filters, and add configurations to that particular filters and deploy these filters onto their service meshes. So service meshes like Istio, which has an Envoy proxy, supports these filters. And this is a way to configure their configure the Envoy proxy, in turn configuring their service meshes. So we have a lot of items, lot of projects being started there over in Meshery over there in filters. So we have a meeting every Monday, and you can find that on the community calendar. And we have some new projects, and like supporting Meshery filters in Meshery, and we also have a project called Filter Hub or Image Hub, which is a sample application that lets you work with filters and so on. So if you are interested in working on that, or if you are looking to learn something new, jump on the call on Monday. And yeah, there are a couple of useful links on the meeting minutes. If anyone is interested, you can check that out as well. Yeah, that's it.
Beautiful. Thank you. The other item here. So Samir was just saying in chat, there are some rusty things that go on over here. WebAssembly is, if you're unfamiliar, well, touches on a lot of different languages. Actually, that's part of why it's, well, will grow in popularity. And for a number of the use cases that we chase after in this community, Rust is one of the languages that gets used for those filters. So that's on Mondays now, apparently. Good. There's also an upcoming, so we end up, as a community, end up participating in a number of different conferences that are within the cloud native ecosystem. There's a call for talk proposals, a CFP that's open and closing this weekend for this conference here. And so, oops, I know there's a couple of you that are submitting. If anyone is wanting to submit and needs help with a proposal or wants to show off projects or things that happen here, just say so. Let's collaborate. Let's help you get it reviewed, or let's help you put your best foot forward in terms of potentially showing something. Nice. So Anita is with us. Anita, I'm gonna highlight this. I'm gonna put you on the spot in a couple of areas maybe. So think about this a little bit, Anita. But then also, Anita, we had this happen this week. Do you want to tell people about the discussion forum and this here?
All right. Okay. So I'm just tell them about the discussion that went on, or the forum itself.
Both. Like not the specifics of the discussion, but just the fact that we celebrate those kinds of things.
Okay. Well, hello everyone. Yes. So we recently launched our Discuss channel. Reasons being that Twitter always forgets most of our details, and we don't want to miss the main information that is put on the Slack channel. So we had to move on to Discuss because it saves history and it has more sufficient memory, I suppose. Yes. So with that, we're moving to the Discuss channel. So it has like various there are various sorry, hold on, I'm trying to check it. So on my end here, you will see that it has various on the different topics in layer 5. All the categories are listed out there, so you can either talk on the meshery or get Nighthawk or service mesh patterns. And also we have the community category there. So if you have a topic or a suggestion or question that you don't want to ask, this is the best place to bring it, so everyone in the community gets to engage in your topic and then give you the right answers.
Perfect. I love Anita. Thanks for letting me put you on the spot with a random request. Cool. And then Rodolfo. So it's a brand new discussion forum. So a great chance for people to jump in and make a mark. Rodolfo Rodolfo and Jubril were just having a discussion, and so the brief discussion ended up in a solution, and so this is the first solution of the site. So I guess those two gentlemen will go down in infamy. Nice. Anyway, if you don't have an account, go get one. Go ask some of your questions on there. It's helpful to not repeating ourselves over time. Good. So the first, so speaking of being put on the spot, I guess I have a topic to talk about, unless someone else does. So no, Aditya is not with us. Okay. Hey, some other things that happen in the community then are, well, there's any number of opportunity to blog about the technologies that are used here, or things that you've done, or just your experience here. And a number of people have. Sometimes people will blog about the experience that they've had. Sometimes it's on technology or features or functions or the fact that we're doing a release. And so there's a lot of things on Meshmates. If you haven't met a Meshmate, I encourage you to. Some people come here and end up schooling their seniors. So Nipur did. Nipur was here for a while, and it did quite a bit. She'd done this presentation. She ended up getting a full-time role and then schooling her seniors in her full-time role because they didn't know service mesh stuff and they didn't know Golang. So she did really well. Anyway, this is a forum that's open to you all, and there's actually some purpose and some organization behind the blog posts that go on. If you're looking for a topic or curious about the upcoming blog posts that might be happening, there are two things to potentially look at. So there are some suggestions here, but in Slack, there's a relatively new channel called the Blog Kitchen, that there's a collection of people who are working on blog posts. There's also a content calendar. There's a spreadsheet of the upcoming blog posts and upcoming events that the community is speaking at and things. So it's a way of jumping in. I'm sure someone will probably drop a link to this so you can go check it out. If any of you are on the call and you're clicking on links and some of them are saying you don't have access, that's a solvable thing. Actually, it's a self-service solvable thing. Most of you here have filled in a member form, a community member form. But if you haven't, this should be the link that you can go fill in this form. And when you do, you'll be granted access to the various, the community calendar, the community shared drive, the community newsletter. So good. So I think this is just kind of this was a call to action for folks like, hey, blog posts are welcome. And I don't know that everyone recognizes this, but just like contributing to open source projects is a great way of gaining experience, of building new relationships, building up your portfolio, your public portfolio. So too are blogs. Like those things don't go away, just like commits to a project don't go away. So I encourage everyone to get out their writing pen. All right, well, on that, next topic is from Dhruv.
Hello, hey guys. So I'm gonna assume you guys can hear me. Let's start talking. So the people who were in the development call for the last meeting must already know this, but I'm gonna call out once again. Meshmap is a side project which we have been working on Meshri, and we think we are at a stage where we can have our first alpha release up in stage. So Meshmap basically is our take on visualizing your cluster itself and trying to do things on top of that visualization. Like you can apply patterns on it, you can check the logs for any particular pod you have in those particular cluster. You can interact with one particular pod and say like, I want to execute this command and see some status like that. And like if you want to run a performance profile in one of the services, and you can do it visually using Meshmap, you can like just click on this and tell us that, oh, I want to run a performance test over here and see how it works. I want to see metrics of a particular service which is going on. Right? This is the goal of what we think Meshmap will be, and few of those features are now being rolled out, and we wanted to test them out and see how they would behave for a real user. And for that, we have started the alpha testing for Meshmap. So people who are interested are more than welcome to write their names over here. Be aware, since this is an alpha test, there would be a lot of bugs in there, and expect bugs, but focus on the part which we tell you to focus, and give us a lot of reviews. You'll probably need a lot of review on the things which we tell are working, and if you find more bugs on that, then great. We would be very helpful to get that reviews from all of you. So if you have any questions about this, feel free to ask right now. Or if you didn't understand what Meshmap was, or I didn't, yeah, anything.
Yeah, one thing that might be helpful is if anyone has a screenshot of Meshmap or just some static mockup or something that might be helpful. One way, like there is a static mockup actually on the Layer5 IO site. This here is more or less, well, more or less a mockup of Meshmap. So Samir is a willing guinea pig, or rather a willing participant. And so Dhruv is calling for others that might want to test out this new visual canvas. So anybody have questions as to what this is or why this is being developed? This visual topology.
Yeah. I have a question, like what is the requirement to understand that thing, because I was unable to understand completely.
Question.
Hello.
Yep, good question. Drew, do you want to?
So your question is, why do you need a visual representation of your mesh so that people who don't
Yeah,
really know
I
how?
got that. I got that part, but I was unable to understand that. Is there anything else do I need to know to test that thing? Uh,
So basically, once the alpha testing starts, we'll provide you with a doc in which there would be certain workflows which you need to follow and check through them. Like, since not all of the features of mesh map are currently there, we will tell you that this particular things are the one which you can test out and check and see whether there's some UX you don't like, or there is a bug which you think we missed and you want a review on that. And even if you don't find any bugs, still give us a review on how you thought the flow was and stuff like that. So if you don't know anything in particular about meshmap, it's all fine. You will be provided with this doc which Lee is sharing, in which we will tell this particular thing we are confident about that this should work, and you can test it out. You can test it out by doing so and so, and that would be probably it. I think you might need to connect a cluster. You need to have a cluster for you to test out meshmap. Like that's the requirement which you would need to have. I think that's the only one. And Meshri, of course, but I am assuming everyone over here has used Meshri once at least,
Yep.
or will be.
So it's a great question about like, hey, what is the thing that I might sign up to do? What does that entail? What's asked of me, and what are the prerequisites to participating in such a program? Good question. And by and large, I think the essence of it is what Drew had said, which is if you've been able to run Meshri as a user, you don't need to have compiled and run Meshri as a developer. Rather, just if you've been able to run Meshri as a user and you've been able to connect Meshri to a Kubernetes cluster, that's probably the prerequisite to participating in the program. It's probably about as much as you would have need to have done. And then there will be a set of tasks. A set of tasks to help you facilitate what you should do with MeshMap. Like, what are the things? It's nowhere near fully complete, but there are some areas that work. And so Drew is calling for those that might be interested in stumbling through a few bugs with him and with the others that are working on it. And there'll be some explicit instructions as to like, here, you try to do this. And if you're successful, you would see this. Part of the instructions, though, will be, they won't be extraordinarily detailed, and that's intentional. Because part of the program is, we wouldn't want to lead the witness. So we would want for people to say, well, I understand the task. The task is to go open up MeshMap, as an example. And if you're sitting there and you're going, well, I don't know where MeshMap is, that's the kind of feedback that's necessary. Like, good, then that's not obvious. And so, anyway, hopefully that provides. So this is like a beta testing program. Like if you've ever signed up to do provide feedback on early software releases, that's what this is. Cool, good. We've got some suckers or some volunteers already, so that's great.
Yeah, and one most important thing is whoever is testing, please capture your testing environment details. Either it's a Minikube or Kubernetes or any cloud providers. So that also, because some issues may pop up in some of the environment and may not be in others.
That's completely true. Good point. Okay. Anybody else have comments on that topic? Cool. If you have questions or you're not quite sure, by the way, this is if you can't tell, it's a friendly community. So you can never ask a stupid question. Trust me, I'll ask those before you get to them. So don't be shy. As a matter of fact, it's a waste if you don't ask the question. It really is a waste. Good. On that, please do see Drew, Mr. Patel, Dhruv, who's championing that program, trying to help get it organized. Anita, since you're used to being put on the spot, I wonder if I could put you on the spot again and maybe brainstorm with us. So there's a number of people coming fresh to Meshry. So we have hit the record maybe today. I'm trying to remember, is the record 29 people on the call? We're at 30. I think, was it Ashita last time that was helping us cheat in the best of ways? I can't remember. Anyway, she was on twice, and so we were right there. Anyway, very nice to have everyone on the call, but a lot of you are, some of you are new to Meshry. And so that's what the newcomers call is for. On Thursdays, there's a weekly newcomers call. Perfect. But also, that call covers, it covers Get Nighthawk, it covers Service Mesh Performance, it covers like a bunch of projects and a bunch of various aspects of them. And so it gives an excellent high-level overview of the community, how to get access to resources, who's who, what a Meshmate is, all these things. And we had a series of tutorials in the past, and we had a schedule of tutorials. As a matter of fact, I'm compelled to bring those up. If we go out to Layer5IO /community/newcomers, or if you go out to Layer5IO and you go to community and join the community, you'll land on this page. Great, here's a journey map. By the way, I'm curious if anyone has ever seen this journey map, but didn't realize that it was interactive and clickable. I would love to get that feedback because it took Tanuj much more editing of an SVG than he had ever wanted to make that happen. And if no one's using it, that's too bad. The reason I'm bringing up this page though, is to say, there've been a number of tutorials on the newcomers call in the past. Hey, introduction to Meshry. How do you contribute to Meshry CTL? How do you become a gopher? What are the, all these, it might be time for us to spin up a couple more tutorials. And so Anita, I was wondering, I thought we might do some brainstorming on potential topics there and maybe ask people on the call, what topics might people want to see for tutorials?
Well, we could do a poll. I was thinking of doing a kind of poll where we ask which topics preferably they would want to get answers to or have a recording on. Because yesterday, some persons suggest we're asking questions on resources for basic explanation of Meshry and service meshes. And I didn't know how the best way to like give the feedback. So, but then they dropped their names that they're up for recording, like they're up to record some new tutorials if need be.
That's perfect. Am I still sharing my screen? Yeah, good. Anita, that is perfect. And as a matter of fact, to your point, we've sent out a poll in the past, a questionnaire, which a number of people have responded to. And I forgot, it actually asks that very question. Boy, my system's not doing well today. Hey, which of these, so Anita, perhaps I'll put this into chat, this link, and sort of let you decide if that's what if we should ask people to fill this in. What do you think?
All right. Okay, I'll go over it.
Yeah, this could be the ticket. Certainly, if anyone fills it in now, that would be great. Like, it's suggestive of a few different tutorials, and if it's not listed, people can type it in. So good, cool. Anita, maybe I should actually stop putting you on the spot so much. So thanks for letting me do that.
That's fine.
Yeah. So actually, I guess, since we went over this, the link to fill in a questionnaire to request a tutorial or to vote for the one that's already listed that you might want to have. If you're on the call, go fill this in. Let's go get a schedule going of a couple of tutorials. There are too many of us here that are too fresh to the project to not spend some time going over the project. Cool. Navendu.
Yeah. So yeah, this is about the Meshery v0.6 release. So if you have been here in the community, you must have heard about the Meshery project. It's one of the most popular and most used and project at Layer5. So Meshery is currently at version 0.5, and it is going to the next release, that is the 0.6 release, and we expect to get it down really soon. So we have a couple of open issues on the Meshery repo that Lee is showing right now, and if you click on the link in the meeting minutes, you will find issues that are specific to this next release. So, and there are a couple of bugs in there, and there are a couple of new features to be added. So this might be a good place to jump in and start contributing. There are even some good first issues and good newcomer issues, and the work ranges from Jekyll websites to the Golang code. So if you are interested in any of that, you can sign up on that issues, and yeah, that's it.
Nice. So we've got an upcoming release of Meshery is what you're saying, and there's a number of things to get done. Curious, there's a list of features for V060, and that was just discussed this last Wednesday, so 2 days ago in the Meshery development meeting. And so this is a good high-level way of understanding what's coming in the release, and might give some context as to what some of those open issues are. Good. I will put a link to that right here. Development meeting. Cool. Okay. Well, next item, Abhishek, do you want to tell us about pipelining? And is Mr. Kumar still on, Abhishek?
Abhishek had a power grid issue, so he'll be joining back as soon as he.
Got it. Okay. All right. So
I can talk about that issue if you like.
Thanks.
You can just go through it, I guess. So there was a issue with a kube config that it was not able to save it properly. There was a bug which had to be fixed, which basically if you configured a new kube config using the setting page itself, it would, when you refresh the page, it will not get the proper info, while in the backend it was still connected to your Kubernetes cluster. So like Meshi would work fine, but in the UI you won't be able to see properly which configuration you had. So there was
yeah, sorry to interrupt you. Do you happen to have Meshery running at the moment? Or, or anybody
I
else?
have the PR up. I don't have the Meshery up. Maybe. Yeah, I don't have Meshery up right now. So basically, we were not passing the particular config info to the UI, which was causing all this fuzz. And we fixed that particular issue with this PR. And what this PR also does is, I think for many of you in this particular week, any PR you made must have been failing one of the UI tests, which was basically in settings specs itself, where it was not able to click on the service mesh chip when it was connected to it. So now you won't be able to see that particular issue. This also fixes that.
Good. Okay. Well, I feel a little bit poorly about this. So the context here is that actually, Dhruv, if you visit meshery.io, there might be a screenshot. I just turned off Docker on my machine. And so I need to turn it back on and show people Meshery. But here in this UI, like on that first screenshot, if you whenever you go to run Meshery, it tries to help you. If you click to make that larger, Meshery tries to automatically connect to your Kubernetes environment. You can deploy Meshery inside of a Kubernetes cluster, like run it just like any other app on the cluster, or you can deploy Meshery outside of the cluster. Either way, Meshery wants to talk to Kube API. It wants to interface programmatically with Kubernetes. And in order to do so, Meshery needs credentials to do that. The credentials that it by default tries to use, well, it depends like which credentials it tries to use depends on if Meshery is deployed inside the cluster or outside the cluster. Outside the cluster, what Meshery will do is, since you'd be running Meshery in Docker, in containers on your machine, normally that same user that's running Meshery on their local machine will also have a Kube config, a local file in their local file system that has credentials to speak to their Kubernetes environment. And so by default, Meshery will, and so now this is a live Meshery. By default, Meshery will reach over to the file that Dhruv is navigating to now, to a Kubernetes config file, and use the credentials inside that file to connect to the Kubernetes instance. And so that's what happens if you're running Meshery outside of the cluster, the Kubernetes cluster. If you deploy Meshery inside the Kubernetes cluster, well, what Meshery will do is recognize that and use a local secret that's available to it as an application to be able to use that secret and those credentials to talk to Kubernetes programmatically. So anyway, the point was Abhishek was going to talk about the fact that there was a change in this area recently that introduced a bug in the end-to-end functional tests that Meshery runs. Every time that someone submits a PR, functional tests run. And some of those are unit tests, some of those are functional tests. Some of the functional tests that run, one of the tools that gets used in the community is there's a lot of GitHub actions, a lot of GitHub workflows that get used, but also other tools like Cypress, like CodeCov, like Netlify, like there's a lot, there's a ton, that's why we have a continuous integration meeting to go over the tools and the workflows. So Cypress, if you're not familiar, it does functional testing. It does end-to-end testing. It's really for testing web-based interactions, or that's what it focuses on. And so Yeah, so it had run into a failure based on changes about the chip where it says the chip context name. Anyway, the details probably don't particularly matter, but this issue is maybe a good way of introducing people to some of the mechanics of how Meshery is built and how it functions in terms of how it talks to Kubernetes. Any comments on this? Just any questions about?
Actually, hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my name is Abhishek, and actually, I have a question. Like, when we are providing kubeconfig file, so it should be like there should be a different kubeconfig file for Meshery cutter, especially, or is this the same kubeconfig that is present in like .cube/config.yaml inside the Monday?
Yeah, so
Actually,
if you let me answer that. So it depends on what kind of config you have, because in some particular config they have credentials as a command line tool itself. Like if you use a DigitalOcean's config file, it sets up your local config in a way that the credentials are not there in the config file itself. They are used by getting it through their docstl command. So usually what you do is when you have a Kubernetes config, you just flatten it and then save it, and then you can use it in Meshery as a common tool.
okay, okay,
Generally, it
sure.
wouldn't matter because your credentials are as it is in Meshery in kubectl itself.
Actually, I'm using Minikube on my local system, and everything is like local. I'm not using any cloud-based service. By the way, I had a problem. If it is not the correct time to ask, like, don't know. I have the problem configuring Meshery to use Minikube at the step, like Meshery cutter system config. Oh, sorry, it's really getting complicated. So,
So if you do kubectl config view minus flatten and minus minify, this should give you the config file which you need to connect to Meshery in case there's something weird going on in your local kube config.
yes. Actually, one more question. So Meshery cutter has a argument like we can set context, right? So we can set context. By default it is localhost 3000 or something, 30342, but I have a different context since I'm running mesh inside pod. So it has a very different IP address, like something 192 dot something. So it's not getting that, and there is an option in the mesh cutter, like you can use a -c of -c for providing a temporary or some different context, but it's not working. I don't know.
I didn't get that particular one.
Okay, so can I share my screen for a while, if it is possible?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Like it's not like if we don't have enough time, so we can discuss it anytime else.
I can probably answer that. Like, were you trying to so you have multiple contacts and you are using the -c tag to switch between contacts, right?
Actually, I don't know about context, but actually I'm getting this error. If I can share my screen, I can't
Yeah.
actually.
Oh, if you have an okay.
Yeah. So this is my auth. So yeah. So this is the default context. I am trying to like change the context. It's getting janky. Yeah. So here it is. So I'm like trying to change the context, and it's not able to do it. Like when I run this command, it will again switch back to the default context that it had already.
Okay. Okay. So basically, like the C flag represents the context inside Meshery. That is,
Yeah.
these contexts are present in inside the Meshery folder, right? There is a something called mesh config, which lets you configure how you want to deploy Meshery. So if you go to your Meshery folder, you will find a config file, .meshery folder.
Okay, okay, okay.
Right. And that is the config. And I have tested it with Minikube and it should work. But the endpoint that Meshery shows when you deploy it onto the Kubernetes cluster is actually wrong. So yeah, here you can see that you have only a single context, that is the local context.
Yeah. So
And
I have to change it, right?
not necessarily. Like if you want a different configuration, then you should change it. But if you are deploying it directly into Kubernetes, then I think you need to have have a load balancer and that a way to expose Meshery outside the cluster, and then you can access it.
Yeah, actually, there is a different IP address that is provided by Minikube tunnel. It's not like it's not able to. I'm not able to access it on localhost port 30342. It's like here on some. Sorry.
Yeah, you may need to
Yeah,
use
this.
the yeah. Okay. Yeah. You may need to access it inside the cluster because that particular deployment of Meshery is not exposed to outside the cluster.
Uh, okay. So I should be like changing this configuration and yeah, we'll figure it out. Okay. Thank you for the help.
Okay.
Nice. Yeah, good questions. I think, yeah. Well, hey, we had about 5 minutes left, and actually of the last topic that we had, it's with respect to Meshery going into the CNCF. So Meshery's been proposed, Meshery and Service Mesh Performance, one of the other projects that we have, they're both proposed to be adopted into the CNCF, and they are desired projects. They are and will be impactful. They relate to one of the existing projects in the CNCF called SMI, Service Mesh Interface is SMI. This is it's a set of abstractions, it's a set of specifications that allow people to interface with service meshes abstractly. So if they want to configure Istio to do something, you can specify that using this spec. And Meshery has been a partner of this specification since it was started a couple years ago. So as Meshery enters into the CNCF, there's an ask for clarification about how they are aligned and how the two reinforce each other. And actually there was a blog post very recently about how the two reinforce each other. Like one of those ways is that Meshery provides conformance testing for this set of specs. Anyway, there's been a lot of discussion about how the two align, underlap, overlap, come together. And it's time to provide, it's time to make some decisions across the three projects. Like, hey, should they all combine into one project? Should two of them combine? Should none of them combine? So this small deck here is just kind of covers what Service Mesh Performance is, what that project is, how Meshery uses it, and then it goes through potential options of like, staying independent, combining SMP with SMI, and how those would work. And so I think visualizing what these projects are and how they overlap and underlap is helpful. There's an intentional lack of kind of color coding on this diagram, which is to say, here's Meshery. Meshery implements this performance specification, which is this. It implements it. Meshery also implements SMI, those specifications, and it also provides conformance testing, like we were just talking about for that. And this diagram sort of tries to highlight like how they're overlapping, how they touch up against each other. They very much so intentionally align. They're built to do this. That's not evident to the layperson, or not evident to someone who doesn't spend the time to go through it all. So we're trying to provide that clarification. And the short of it is that Meshery does a whole lot more than either of these two specifications identify. And so I think as we go to answer the question of whether or not they should combine or not, I think it's evident that Meshery as a project should continue to stand alone and be an independent project that aligns and reinforces these two specification projects. It's less clear as to whether or not these two specification projects maybe shouldn't come together and be a single spec. Still kind of an open question. So I wanted to give everyone an update, and for the maintainers that represent these projects that are on this call, for all of them to be able to express opinion as well. They've been expressing that for some time. An alternative view, as everyone digests that, and maybe some of you have comment, I'm going to move to the next slide and let you digest the next slide, and people can comment on it, is an alternative view of Meshery's capabilities. Well, one alternative view is just to go to meshery.io, and it identifies the high-level categories of functionality. But a different way of digesting that is to look at this object model. Like this is Meshery's internal object model, like its view of the world and a list of its components. So this is another way of helping people understand the difference between where SMI is used and what it does, where SMP is used and what it does, and the rest. So, questions, comments? Does anyone think that all three projects should come together?
No, not from my point of view, because it better to stay independent, so that the features can come with a much more comprehensive way. Because when you try to merge them all three and to reach to a decision wherein what to keep and what not to keep may impact, that will take some time, which may impact the people who are using the Meshery and other maybe other service mesh, SMI or something like that.
That's an important consideration. Like it's a lot to coordinate. It is like Kubernetes as an example, like it is like, or OpenStack as an example, like it can be coordinated. Oftentimes it takes an entire foundation to coordinate like things as big as that. And in some respects, like Istio is a good representation of a very large project that takes lots of organizations to organize and run. And so if Meshery is spanning across multiple service, like there's a lot going on. And actually to Samir's point, one of the reasons that it's still kind of a question mark, or that it remains an open set of discussions about potentially merging the two spec projects, is because SMI has 11 maintainers, and they're from different organizations, and that's beautiful. And that's by design, because you want each of the service meshes that would implement the spec to be represented. Good, except there's 11 of them, and like 6 of them haven't shown up for a meeting for like 6 months. Well, okay, so that's fine. Like people change roles, focus changes, but the maintainership needs to be curated. The project initially started with 4 specs, one for traffic metrics, one for traffic access, another for traffic specs, another for
Traffic split.
What is it? Traffic split. Yeah. Good, but what about envoy filters? Or what about, like, there's a litany of other things that service meshes do that like go unaddressed. And that's fine. Like every project starts small and builds, but SMI hasn't yet. And so as an SMI maintainer, it's okay for me to call our baby ugly or not as pretty, not as cute as we would like for it to be. And it's possible to make the baby even cuter, to work on SMI and make it cuter. And we're talking a lot about how to breathe new life into SMI. One of those ways is to take SMP, which a lot of people are quite interested in terms of what metrics are important, what benchmarks should be used, and how to know if you're doing things well or not. Like, and you can merge the two together and from my perspective, breathe new life into SMI. From just for me as well, like I want for SMI to do well and to be an excellent project and to reinforce what Meshry is doing. Right now, Meshry doesn't benefit a ton from SMI because it has such a limited scope of field of view, so few specs. We're empowered to go change that. We can. We need help. Help from Microsoft actually is probably specifically like I think they need to step up and put some muscle behind it. But yeah, Samir, good point. And it's more than just, it's not only like, there's a lot of alignment that would need to happen to really merge all three of those. It would be a strong position to be in, to be able to say, like, from the CNCF's view, there's sort of this one project, it says how you define what a service mesh is, how you measure how well it's running, and how you orchestrate or manage any service mesh. Like, wow, that's quite the project. Like that's the, you know, that becomes the epitome of but it's also riddled with a bunch of like one of the challenges that you're pointing out, Samir. So that's good feedback.
And just a question, like these decisions are taken by the CNCF guys to merge, or it is kind of a open questions, like can we get all this into a single place?
Yeah, it's more the latter. It's more like an open question. It's an open question. It's a question from them saying, hey, as the project it is not an edict. Yep, it's like, hey, they would like more diligence done before they come in. And so the next review point is this Tuesday, and there's been a fair bit of diligence done. I think there's more to explore with respect to the specs. I think that that's exactly what the sandbox is for. So I will, for my part, I'll go push to put SMP in as its own project, pending figuring out kind of what long-term makes sense with SMI, in part because A, that's what the sandbox is for. B, like Intel as an example is a company that doesn't really feel comfortable engaging deeply into open source projects unless they belong to a foundation like the CNCF. And so if we gate a project like SMP and we say, well, we have to figure this other thing out first before it can go in, it's like, it's a catch-22, and we sort of kill the project before it gets a chance to go. So yes, Samir, it's a nuanced thing, like the extent of control that the CNC Technical Oversight Committee has on projects.
Okay.
And in this case, it's the choice of the projects. They may apply a lot of pressure, and it's a good question. Like, it's a very healthy question. Makes a lot of sense when you're standing back from afar and you say, well, so how do I interact with service meshes abstractly? Okay, well, there's this spec and there's this spec. Oh, there's two specs. Why is there two specs? Why isn't there just one spec? It's a good question. There should be reasons. So.
Because service mesh has already been complicated, and that is why we are going to go for the, like, Meshry or some of which can make our life easier from a like administrator or operation perspective, and adding complexity on top of that would be kind of
Yeah. Yeah. Any other? So we're a little bit. Well, we're a little bit over. Anyway, if folks have other comments or questions on that topic, it's timely. You should mention them. I had said the next evaluation point is on Tuesday. So with that, it's been very nice to meet a number of you. There's one of you on the call that we didn't get to say hi to, and it's Mr. Dasgupta Anirban. Nice to have you. And so with that, it's a wrap. Hey, same time next week. See you on the next call.
Happy Drew.
Yeah. Thank you, Drew.
Thanks, Lee.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.